Okay, we're in chapter 6 again, and we're looking at 6.4. We're going to add rational expressions. So when adding rational expressions with like denominators, you simply just add the numerators together and you keep the denominators the same. And then we simplify if possible or if needed. So for example, you have 5 plus 6, 5 over w plus 6 plus w over w. Well, the denominators are the same, so we really rewrite this as simply just as, let me get my pencil here, as 5 plus 6 plus w over w. That simplifies to 11 plus w over w. Okay, we combine like terms, don't forget that. These have the same denominator, so now we have 4x plus 3x plus 2 all over x minus 7. 4x plus 3x add up, so we get 7x plus 2 all over x minus 7. Now in both of those, you want to look and see if there's a GCF that you can take out of them. And if there is, then it could factor further or simplify. These do not, so you are done. So let's look at this one. These have the same denominator, so we're safe there. So my suggestion is combine them by adding the numerators, and I'm going to go ahead and do it one step. I'm going to combine this one. So 3x squared plus x squared gives me 4x squared. And then I have 4x plus x, so that gives me 5x. And then you have a negative 9 and a negative 3. That gives me a negative 12 all over 3x minus 1. Now, the next step would be to factor that if you needed to see if there's anything else. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that one is prime. I mean, you can factor it, but nothing's going to cancel, so we're finished on this one. Let's look at D because they have like denominators again, and I've actually left that one for you. You have 3, you have x, and then you have a negative 9 plus 3, so the final answer is x minus 6 over x squared minus 36. So we're finished there. Well, actually we're not. Think about this. The x squared minus 36, does that simplify? Our other denominators didn't, did they? But this one does. So we wind up with x plus 6 times x minus 6. Look what happens here. This one here and this one cancels. There's still a 1 there. So our final answer is 1 over x plus 6. So that's why it's important to check to see if anything factors. Always see if you can factor out in the denominator first, and that'll tell you if you need to start looking at the numerator. So adding expressions with different denominators, you find the least common multiple of the denominators. This is the least common denominator. You're going to hear me say LCM or LCD. For each rational expression, find an equivalent expression with the LCD. To do so, multiply by 1 using an expression for 1 made up of factors of the LCD that are missing from the original denominator. Add the numerators, write the sum over LCD, and simplify if possible. So here's our practice problem. We have 4x squared plus 4x squared over 9 plus 5x over 12. So we need to find things that 9 and 12 will go into evenly, the least common denominator. So the first thing I would do is I would create a factor tree if you needed to. And so if I do a factor tree with 9, I know I get 9 equals 3 times 3. And 12 would be 2 times 2 times 3. And I'm going to circle any pairs that are in the same as both of these. So that one I'm going to write down one time. And then I'm going to write down all the remaining ones. I get a 3, I get a 2, and I get a 2. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18, times 2 more equals 36. Now you may can figure that out a lot of times if you needed to, but that'll just help you a little bit to see what would go in there, okay? So, what is missing? what would you have to multiply 9 by to get 36? 4. So if you had to multiply 9 by 36 to get 4, multiply by 4 to get 36, you have to multiply the numerator also. So 9 times 4 is 36, and then 4 times 4x is going to give us, 4x squared is going to give us 16x squared, plus, what did you have to multiply that the 12 by to get 36? Yeah, 3. So make sure that you know. So that gives us 36 there. And then 5x times 3 is 15x. So now that we have found that, now that they have the same common denominator, we can add them together. And so we wind up with 16x squared plus 15x over 36. Then you want to look and see if you can factor or if they have any common factors. Now the first thing I see is that I can factor an x out of the top, and that leaves me 16x plus 15 over 36. It really didn't help to factor, but it just showed that we couldn't factor anything, that we're done. So on paper, unless it's multiple choice, either one of these answers would have been correct. Okay? Now if it's multiple choice, you may have to decide which one you would choose. They're not going to put both of them on the test. Okay, let's look at this one. Now, first we have to find the LCD. So what I normally do is I go in and I factor them. So now I have a squared minus 4, and that factors to a plus 2 times a minus 2. And then on the a squared minus 2a, that factors to a times a minus 2. Again, these are in common, so I'm only going to write them down one time. So our denominator is simply going to be a minus 2 times a plus 2 times a, because these are what's left here and here after we wrote this down one time. Okay. So, what would you have to multiply the a squared minus 4 by to come up with everything that is in that bottom? An a. We would have to multiply this by an a. Okay? And that means that we'd have to multiply the top and the bottom by a. Now let's look at a squared minus 2a. What's missing there? Very good, the a plus 2. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to multiply this by a here. We have our common denominator. That's really what we did here. And then we have the a plus 2 here. So it's a plus 2 here. So we're just really looking at the numerators at this point. So you have a times 3a. So it gives me 3a squared. And then you have a times a plus 2. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply that out. So that's going to give me 2a plus 4. Can we gather any like terms? No, not at this point. So this gives me 3a squared plus 2a plus 4 over a times a minus 2 times a plus 2. Now you can't leave that. You need to see if we can factor. The 3a squared plus 2a plus 4 will not factor, so we are done. So that helped us out a lot. Okay, let's look at the next one. Again, I'm going to find the common denominators. So let's look at this one right here. This factors down to a minus 2 times a minus 2. And I'm going to write this one in red. This factors down to a minus 2, a plus 5. So our common denominator is going to be a minus 2 times a minus 2, because that was what was left in the top, and then a plus 5. Okay. So, what's missing out of the first one? The a plus 5. So that means we're going to multiply this times a plus 5. I'm sorry, not a. All of these should be x's. Let me go back and fix that real quick. I was still hung up on the one we did earlier. I'm going to make that an x. I'll go through and erase all these real quick. There's an x, there's an x, 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 then x. Woo, that was a close one. Okay, and then this 4, we are simply missing the x minus 2. So that's what we want to make sure that we put there. So I'm going to go ahead and FOIL these out right here. So I get x squared. So x times x is x squared, then x, let's do it down here. So we get x squared plus 5x plus x plus 5. So we get x squared plus 6x plus 5. So now we get x squared plus 6x plus 5. And then let's go ahead and do this one right here. We can do 4x. So it's going to be plus 4x. And then 4 times negative 2 is going to be negative 8. Let's gather like terms. We have x squared. And then we have a 6 and a 4. So it's going to give us what? 10x. And then a 5 minus 8 is going to give us a negative 3 all over x minus 2, x minus 2, x plus 5. Now we need to look and see if we can simplify the numerator. We can't. So we're done. That's our final answer. When factors are opposite, then we're going to change it and multiply by negative 1 being divided by negative 1. When one denominator is the opposite of the other, we can first multiply either by the expression of 1 using negative 1 times negative 1. So let's look at this one. We have y over 3 times 4 over negative 3. So if we go in here and we just multiply the top by negative 1 over negative 1, we get y over 3 plus a negative 4 over a positive 3, because a negative times a negative. And then we gather anything that we can together. If we can't, we just simply write it as y minus 4 over 3, and that is our final answer. Alright, what do you notice about these? We have x minus 3, and then we have 3 minus x. So I'm simply just going to multiply the outside one just because it's easier to get to. So we wind up with 5x over x minus 3 plus negative 2 over x minus 3. I just changed the order. So I wind up with 5x minus 2 over x minus 3. And we can't simplify, so we are done. That's our final answer on that one. Last problem. Alright, so let's go through here and factor first, because we need a common denominator. So I wind up with this factors is x plus 6 and x minus 6 plus 5 over 6 minus x. Can't get my stylus to work. Okay. Now, we notice that we have an x minus 6, but we have 6 minus x. So let's just go ahead and multiply this by negative 1 over negative 1. So that changes our problem to x over x plus 6 times x minus 6 plus 5 over x minus 6. Okay, I just changed the order, but we multiplied it. Now, our common denominator, we need an x plus 6. So if we multiply this as an x plus 6 here and an x plus 6 here, then we have the same common denominator. So now we have x plus, I'm going to go ahead and distribute this through this. So we get 5x plus 30 over x plus 6, x minus 6. Gather like terms, I get 6x plus 30 over x plus 6, x minus 6. Okay, and then I try to simplify if I can. Oh, I made a mistake. Let's go back and fix it real quick. This is a negative 5 right here. So let's fix it right here. See, I wasn't paying attention with my negative 1. This was a negative 5 here. So we get negative 5x, and then the negative 5 times the positive 6 gives us a negative 30. So let's fix that one too. That's going to change this answer over here. So let me clean this up a little bit. So now we wind up with positive x minus 5x gives me minus 4x minus 30 over x plus 6, x minus 6. Now, can that simplify any further? It cannot, and we are done.